Hello. Namaste, everyone. I hope you're doing great. So, this video is the continuation of our learning the basics of astrology. So, the very first video on planets through the houses. That's what we are going to discuss today. And we shall start with Saturn, the most important planet. All right. Actually, all the planets are important in their own way, right? So that's what we are here to understand. Before we move ahead, please subscribe my channel and hit the bell icon so that you get regular updates. Also, if you would like to have your personal readings from me, you can check out the link in the description box, www.anmolastrology.com. Under the readings and unique readings section, you can book a personal reading for yourself. Also, you can sign up for online courses available under the courses section under the same link. All right, so let's move ahead with Saturn through houses. Before we step into the predictions, I would like to tell here that this is the video of all the all 12 houses, Saturn through all of that 12 houses, and the understanding of how to analyze Saturn in a certain house. But further down the lane, we are going to go through each house as a single video. Like Saturn in the first house would be a separate video, Saturn in the second house would be a separate video. The reason behind it is that I am not going to include the aspects, the secret aspects, and which placements are important from a planet into this video because that way this would go like 3 or 4 hours long. Right? So that's the reason we are going to just talk about the basics of how you need to analyze if a planet is in a certain house. That's it. All right. So the basic or introductory predictions. Another thing, these predictions would definitely resonate with you, but the degree can change. Degree, as in the quality of the prediction, can change. The dignity of the planet matters, right? The planet's dignity is decided upon which zodiac sign it is in. So we are going to talk about the houses, but in which zodiac sign it is, that would basically filter out how the prediction would come. If suppose Saturn is in a good zodiac sign, in a friendly zodiac sign, or in a exaltation position, it is going to give easier, growth of that area, but the struggle will always be there. We'll discuss about that. If it is debilitated, the dignity is low, so the hard work is more. Right? So that's how you judge a placement. So please do not feel that if something is not resonating with you 100%, then it is incorrect. It's basically dependent upon the dignity as well. All right. So before we move ahead for Saturn through the houses, let's understand what is the meaning of Saturn, for which I have done a separate video. I'll attach the link to that as well. But we'll understand a little bit of the basic, then how a planet, how Saturn would give its result when it is in a house. That we will understand in a form of story, right? Because every planet has a theme that they go ahead with. They have a story to play out. Saturn is the planet of fear, misery, sorrow, discipline, structure. Saturn is the planet of karma, fairness, balance. That's the reason it is exalted in Libra. It is the planet of patience, resilience. Saturn is your career. Saturn is your service. Saturn is your relationship with the people who are in service to you, like your servants, the people who work within your home or who are a part of your home's mechanism. Because your servants are not just the people who work for you, they run your house. That's why Shani says that you need to respect them. You need to treat them as the king. That's what Shani is about. So Saturn is the restriction. Saturn is the boundaries. All right. Now, when Saturn comes into a house, what would you get out of it? What does Saturn's placement mean for you? So, let me tell you one thing, like a story. Whatever Saturn's placement you are born with, that's the area which will make you feel as if you have scarcity of that area. Like, for example, if Saturn is in the fourth house, you will feel that I have to be independent. There's no one who is able to give me that emotional support. There's no one who has nurtured me the way I wanted love. So you crave the placement of Saturn. And this is, I'm talking about while you were a small child, while you were born, and then you grew up. That's your childhood. Because you develop that feeling that this is something from where I'm receiving just the tits and bits. I'm not receiving the whole bread. It's just the breadcrumbs that are coming from that area. And then you try to restrict yourself with that area because that's the lesson that Saturn is basically giving you. Wherever your Saturn is placed, Saturn would first make you feel that you don't have that, that you need that, but you are deprived of that. Saturn in the second house. You will feel that you're deprived of the connection with the family. You're deprived of resources, money. And that will make you work upon it because Saturn represents consistency, it represents discipline, it represents repetition. So, Saturn basically, at one point in your life, whenever the activation is there through Saturn Dasha, through Saturn the natal transit, or through, Sadesati, it will take that significance of that area away from you. Saturn in the seventh house. At some point, it will take the relationship away from you just for you to realize what is the value of it. Because wherever Saturn is placed, it will make you value that area. It will make you value the significance of that area. So, Saturn is the hard teacher, it's the harsh teacher. And just compare this with the life of Shani himself. First, he was born through Chaya, right? Chaya was not respected because she was Chaya of Sanjana. So she was a dupe of the original sun goddess. Shani had to struggle his way through and come to the throne of the Karmadhish. That's what you have to achieve into that house. You will have to prove yourself within that house, wherever your Saturn is placed. Maximum amount of criticism, maximum amount of judgment would come from there. You'll get irritated from that area. You'll get frustrated from that area. But that is the area which is going to make you grow. That is the area which is the powerhouse of your chart because that's your career. That's your karma. You are here to fulfill the karma of where Saturn is placed. If you do that by acknowledging it, you do that easily without getting the discomfort, your life will be smooth. If you tend to get irritated and if you tend to not acknowledge that your karma is to be done because, towards that area, That is going to, you'll feel difficulty. Most of the struggle is not the struggle that we get, it's the struggle that we feel. That's what Shani is about. Shani wants you to understand your duties, responsibility, and commitment towards that house. So, Shani, from the very young age, would make you feel the heaviness of that house, because Shani wants you to first feel the misery, the sorrow, the sadness from that house, get irritated from that house. You won't be able to stand that house, but at the same time, you had to learn your resilience. You have to learn to fight back. You have to learn to basically set up the chaos. Shani, when in whatever house Shani is placed, or in the transit wherever it comes, it's like that first it will make the earthquake happen into that house. It will mess up the whole house, and then it will restructure it. That's your karma with that house. You're bound to restructure that house. You're bound to fulfill your commitment and duty towards that house. And Shani is also the rebel. Shani will rebel from that house, just like Shani rebelled everyone and followed the path of trueness, fairness, and proved his worth and became the Karmadhish, became as, brilliant as the ones who were there in the Sabha, in the Devlok from such a long period of time. Like, it's that from a very young age, your struggle begins, regarding that house. So that house will be the reason of your fear. Whenever you look at a chart, just talk to the person, just tell the native that this is the area that you fear. That's why you always want to work upon that area. Like Saturn in the second house. You have fear about losing money. You have fear about losing your family members. It's like that your family members, even though you have worst relationship with the family members, but anything if happens to them, you will not be able to operate properly. You will have to be supportive there. You will have to show up there, because wherever Shani is placed, you will have to show your presence. That's why whenever Shani transits into any of the houses, you have to show up to that house during that time. So your fear comes from there. Saturn in the fourth house. You're fearful about connecting emotionally with others, because you know that when you connect emotionally, you're totally true, you are fair, and you connect deeply with the other person. You are totally committed. But if that is not reciprocated, that's the hurt that you get. So, wherever your Saturn is placed, that's the area which will make you feel the misery, feel the sorrow. And that's what makes you very strong, grounded, and practical in regards of that area. So it's not that you're born practical, you're born cold towards that area. No, the circumstances and the people created you. They made you like that. It's the circumstances that led to the transition of your personality towards that. Now, see, Shani is the lord of the 10th house and the 11th house. So that's very understood that your recognition, your support whenever required would come from the placement of Shani. But the hard work, the criticism, the judgment, the pinpointing of your things would also come from from the house where Shani is. Like example, the fourth house. If Shani is in the ninth house, your your father, your gurus will be very critical. They will be very judgmental. But whenever you need support, whenever you are in the need, they will come and stand up for you. They will show up for you. All right. So that's the understanding of Shani. Actually, I wrote some points down, so I don't want to miss anything. So we talked about Shani follows the process. The most of the criticism comes from there. The support comes from there. You crave that placement since childhood. You feel neglected. You will always feel neglected from that area because it's like a push and pull, combination that happens with the placement of Shani. This is the house which becomes your strongest trait and strength. Since you have faced the neglect and you have perfected yourself to ground it, you have done things repetitively to grow and to be perfect. Okay, so that's what you desire from the placement of Saturn. Now, another thing is that wherever Shani is placed, you will experience the boundaries, you will experience the distance and detachment from that area at least once in your life, right? And then because you have felt all of these mixed emotions from that area, you start restricting that area. You start, building boundaries around that area. And these major activations would happen whenever the dasha gets activated of Shani, the Sadesati, the natal transit, and between 36th year to 48th year. All right, now let's talk about what Shani does in a house. So let's talk about Shani or Saturn through houses. Now, Saturn in the first house. It's naturally in the house which is governed by Aries. So it gets debilitated there. So, first of all, with a person with Saturn in the first house, this individual's battle and karma is with themselves. Your growth or competition is not on the basis of who is doing well than you. It is how you are doing. In a year, you are earning this much amount of money, and next year, are you going or not? So, your competition is with you. Your recognition is going to be happening with your own personality. Your career would definitely have something significant in regards of your presence, your skills, your mind, and your abilities. So, Saturn in the first house, indeed, that makes you go through loneliness. That makes you go through, that you put boundaries around yourself. You are the one who is going to experience the criticism the most, the judgment the most, because you're going to rebel. You're going to rebel whatever feels injustice to you, whatever feels not the correct version of you. So it's your battle with yourself, not someone else, but with yourself. These are the people who grow up and become most serious, dedicated, grounded, and stable individuals. Because you have been through that instability of yourself. You have self criticized a lot. You have heard all the comments that were passed in your surroundings about you. You grew out of it. That's the journey that you go through. And at least once in your life, you transition in the form of your appearance. Like I have seen this many times with a person with Saturn in the ascendant, that they somehow are very chubby children in their teenage and then they become fit. So they go from fat to fit. So that's the transition I've seen for them, because Saturn makes you understand that your responsibilities and duties are towards you. It's towards your health, your well being. Because first, you'll be so vulnerable, so attached to the others. So, you're getting your validation from the others. You're giving your service to the others without even setting up a boundary, without even setting up a full stop. So that's how you transition into a person who is not going to entertain any, unnecessary unnecessary factor in their life. And you have learned that you're powerful when you are alone. So these are the most individualistic, most independent people that you will see, because they have been there when they desired to be dependent on the others, but that failed, because that's the karma you got with Saturn in the first house. So now your fear is related to that, your own self, how you are doing in a day, how you are growing. So your fight is with yourself, your karma is with yourself, your service has to be towards you first. Other things come apart. And definitely in career, you desire to have something as a part of your career where you can independently do things. That's why your presence, your abilities, your self expression becomes really important in your career. And these are the people who do have entrepreneurship abilities, but they definitely go into something which is associated with service. All right. So now Saturn in the second house. Invisibly, or you can say fundamentally, it's in the domain of Taurus, the second house. This is the house of family. It's the house of your lifestyle, right? It is the house of your finances. It's the house of your traditions. So, Saturn in the second house, people are definitely old school, but not the kind of old school their family wants them to be. So, Saturn in the second house, your duty and your commitment is towards the family, whether you like it or not. Trust me, there are very less people with Saturn in the second house who have totally healthy relationship with the family. If you'll ask them, what has been your childhood issue? What has been something that has bothered you? The first thing that would come in your mind is the family dynamics. And especially with the people who have Saturn in the second house, in the fourth house, in the eighth house, or with the second lord, fourth lord, eighth lord, with moon, with the Mars, they most probably go through property issues or ancestral property issues, or something is like, a kind of war that they experience within their family, especially with Saturn in the second house. Because Saturn was in Taurus when Mahabharata was, planned. It was it has to happen. So that's why Saturn is not considered good in the sign of Taurus, because there's extreme obligation towards the family, towards your traditional lineage. You have to carry that forward, even though you feel uncomfortable doing so, even though your opinions do not match in with your family. But one thing that this Saturn would beautifully execute is your wealth. The graph of your wealth will always go up, but it's not like the high up. It's slow and stable success that you get, because you develop your fear about money. You develop your fear about losing money, losing resources, losing the lifestyle that you have. That's why you won't see much of the people with Saturn in the second house to be speaking about their money matters. You will always try to hide the facts of where Saturn is because you've gone through that fear, and Saturn makes you learn that how important it is to not basically talk about the growth of that area where Saturn is with the others. It makes you understand that nazar concept. That's why whenever I see a person with Saturn in the second house, I tell them two remedies. The first one, that always provide your family, someone in your family. And for the women, for the girls who have been married, they need to provide to their family, like their parents. At least it's even $100. It's even $100 a month. It's even 500 rupees a month. Just send them a little amount of money, and trust me, that will come 10 folds into your savings. Somehow you will receive that blessing. Anyone in your family is struggling with their health, give them some, buy their medicine, give them some amount of money as help. It will come as 10 folds into your income. That's how you grow with Saturn in the second house. So the first remedy is the provision. The second remedy is do not talk about your finances. And eventually, you'll always see the people with the second house Saturn. They don't talk much about, how what they have. And sometimes I've even seen people with second house Saturn and sometimes very afflicted or into certain signs that they would even go and travel somewhere. They would never post a thing. They would never tell anyone where they have been. That's the kind of thing you also develop into your mind, but that's only when Saturn somehow is losing its dignity. The fear takes on the energy of Saturn, and it's very necessary. So these are the two remedies that you need to do, and it's very necessary to always organize and structure your finances. Always have a structured, planned event with your family. Like, for example, every Sunday we all have to sit together. Every Saturday we all have to come at one place and have dinner together. Do something like this with your family. Even if there is chaos, there is mess when everyone gets around, when everyone gets together. But do it. Do it for your own sake, for your own blessings with family, your own blessings with wealth. All right. Now, Saturn in the third house. When Saturn is in the third house, one thing which is consistently seen every time, this person will always be motivated to do something associated with their skills, or they would always be motivated to have their own business. And that's something which is going to happen way, way ahead because your karma is towards job. Your karma of your career, it's towards service, to first connect locally. And every person with Saturn in the third house, Shani in the third house, you will, if you want to grow, if you want to be independent, first be involved in some smaller work. If you want to expand, you want to go higher with your designation, with your career, first work on the small level. That is extremely important for a person with Saturn in the third house. They have to work. They have to start from scratch. They have to work on the smaller level first, then go on a little higher level, then go on a little higher level, then on the entrepreneurship level. It's not that they can straight away jump from, a nominal labor job to the entrepreneurship. That would never work for them. If you want to have a long-term growth, do this. With Saturn in the third house, your fear is communication. Your fear is the fear. There is fear that triggers your fear. So, this is a person who would always try to go by the books, who will always try to go systematically for everything. They would reassure everything. This is the domain of Gemini, the third house. They would want to reassure everything. These are the people who would talk to, who will tell you, okay, this is going to happen. You will say, yes. This is going to happen. Yes. This is going to happen. Yes. Till the time they don't hear what they want to hear, they're going to keep reassuring, they are going to keep validating. That's what Saturn does in the third house. Your relationship with your younger sibling will always be distant. Both of you can never live at the same space, at the same place as well. So there's always a physical distance that is there with the younger sibling. In some cases, there is no younger sibling at all with Saturn in the third house. But this is not applicable to everyone. In some cases, there will be a younger sibling, but there'll always be a distance. There is the most amount of criticism that will come from the younger sibling, but at the same time, whenever you need support, that's the person who is going to show up. So your duty, your commitment is towards the younger sibling, towards your servants, towards skill workers, towards your neighbors as well. So, if possible, provide your younger sibling, like give them just 500 rupees a month. Give them just $100 or whatever amount is feasible to you, just $10 a month. But you have to be consistent. That has to be every month. It's not like 1 month you're skipping, 1 month you are not doing it, you're doing 2 months, then you're skipping, then you're doing. No. That's not how Saturn works. Saturn works on discipline and consistency. Have structured communication. With Saturn in the third house, I've seen one thing. These people tend to structure the communication within their mind first before they actually speak, because it is a Saturn which basically can make you very humorous. It can make you a very humorous person. You can be a dark, what do we call it? You can do dark comedy. You can do dark jokes or something like that. You're very good with your sense of humor, but that's always backed up by fear, right? Saturn in the third house, definitely your career, your duty has to involve your skills. It has to involve your labor work. Like the biggest example of Saturn in the third house is Shri K. Rao sir. He has been an IAS officer all his life before he dived into astrology, because there are certain placements of Saturn which makes you go to the deep core of knowledge. For astrology, it's actually one of the important, planets which will actually give you the factual information, which will give you that mindset to understand what is that piece of information that is going to be applicable to the real world, to the real people, like not as a superstition, but as an actual thing. That is Saturn in the third house. It filters the information that comes towards you, because that's the third house. These people would struggle with their initial education. They would always struggle with their initial education. They would always struggle with understanding things, learning things. But that's where the motivation comes. They would learn and learn more. So that one day they have perfected themselves with the knowledge, and they would give you highly critical information. If you want to know that, suppose, for example, if you want to try a food place, right? Ask a person with Saturn in the third house that should I go there? They are going to be the excellent critique. That's how solid their evaluation is. Because that's what they have learned all their life. That's the karma they have gotten. So the third house Saturn makes you work hard, not just upon communication. You will have difficulty with early education and also with communication. And especially if Mercury is connected here, then some issues with the speech could also be there, or you will have delay in speech, after your birth. Then Saturn in the fourth house. The most important placements of Saturn are the first, fourth, seventh, and 10th because their Saturn is in the Kendras. And Saturn is all about foundation. Whenever it comes into Kendra, it works on the foundation and it gives you solid foundation there. So that's why 1, 4, 7, 10 are significant. But it doesn't mean that Saturn doesn't do very well in the other houses, right? In Kendra, it does well. In Upachya or Trik houses, it does well, right? It actually, according to me, it's not significantly well in the Trikona houses. One of them is also the first house, which is the Kendra house as well. That's why it's neutral in the first house. It's not very good in the Trikona houses and 8th and 12th. I didn't say Dushtana because I think 6th house Saturn is brilliant. Okay? But we'll talk about it. It's not always all negative, it's always negatives and positives. All right? So, Saturn in the fourth house. Saturn in the fourth house, you have had a very lonely childhood. All your life, you have struggled for love. You wanted to nourish, you wanted to nurture, and you wanted to be nurtured. You wanted to be nourished. But the greatest karma that you have, that is with the mother. Either the mother suffers in her own life, that's why she is very critical of you, or it's you that has a very critical relationship with the mother. You will have to take up her responsibility. You will have to take up the duties of the home. For a person with Saturn in the fourth house, it's almost nearly impossible to leave the home. Even if you leave the home, you'll settle somewhere else. The tension of the home, the consideration of the home will always be on your mind. Because that's the area where your duty commitment is required. That's the area with which the heaviness comes around. So, from being a small child, you have been deprived of love. You have been connecting yourself with others to a deep, loving level, and you have been fair to everyone. You have been very sincere about your duty towards everyone, but you have gotten the hurt. You have gotten such a big load of expectations within your heart and your mind that made you put boundaries with your emotions. Now, with a person with fourth house Saturn and 10th house Saturn, you go and praise them. You tell them, oh, you're so beautiful. Oh, you're doing so well in your career. They would be like, yes, okay, I know. They would never be go on the ninth cloud or the seventh cloud with that appreciation because they have expected to have that appreciation all their life. And they were not. They did not get that. They wanted to have validation from the mother. They wanted to have nourishment from the mother and from the others. But all they got was criticism. Nothing was enough. Another thing And that's what has gotten them here, what made them become cold. So it's not that they are not emotionally available, they are. The fourth house Saturn people are going to be the most dutiful, not beautiful, dutiful people towards you, towards the people they love, towards the home, towards the mother. But they have understood the karma. Whenever Saturn would come as a natal Saturn return or as a Sadasati, you will understand that how important it is to set boundaries, how important it is to say no. Because firstly, you didn't know that how to say no. It was all, okay, someone said me this, okay, I'm going to do that. Fourth house Saturn is the most stable Saturn. It because it works on growth and stability, because fourth house is growth and stability. The fear surrounds around home. That's why these people always would have one goal in life: to establish a home, physically or emotionally. Physically, as in to purchase their own property, purchase their own home. Emotionally, to establish a strong foundational, you know, emotions with their children, with their extended with their family that they are going to create. So, fourth house Saturn with their career, they would always have research, or somehow there will be a comfortable space. Like fourth house Saturn, they either have a showroom, they have an office, or they work from home, or there is deep research involved with home. They are medical practitioners, they are school teachers, professors. Anything related to the home, the research, the comfortable environment, creating an environment, that is what is going to happen. That is what is basically very significant with the fourth house Saturn. But the struggle, the criticism comes from the mother, the home environment. And it is going to be the mother. It is going to be your mother or your stepmother in some cases, who is going to instill that practicality or the realism of the world into you. Either as a part of teaching you, or it's just that the way your relationship with her has been the way that led you towards understanding what the reality of life is, because your struggle starts from the home. It doesn't start from the outside, it starts from the home. Now Saturn in the fifth house. Fifth house is the natural domain of Leo. Fifth house is your intelligence, it's your education. With Saturn in the fifth house, you definitely experience struggle with education. You definitely are going to have some sort of gap or some sort of dropout in regards of your education. Most of all, I've seen people to have some compartments or redoing of exams with Saturn in the fifth house. Fifth house is romance. Fifth house is your love expression. It's your skills. First of all, Saturn in the fifth house is one of the placements of a person who is very good speculator, who is very good at understanding the patterns, who is very creative, but in a technical sense. Fifth house Saturn, your karma starts with your children. You would not want to have children early in your life. You would definitely want to have children once, either like sometimes with certain planet alignments, the desire to have a children is not there. But it's important for you to have children because your karma has to get fulfilled towards that area. It's it's evident, it's important that your karma gets fulfilled towards that area. So you have karma with speculations. So it's always a struggle for a person with fifth house Saturn to have a consistent graph with their shares, with their investments. So it's, I always tell when I see Saturn in the fifth house, I always tell those people that they have to be very careful with where they invest their money. Because with Saturn with the fifth house, it sometimes can give you tremendous amount of money through speculation, through shares, through gambling. But once you go into that greedy zone and you try to invest way more than what is expected, you will lose that money. That's what happens with Saturn in the fifth house. But the interest of making money and having that kind of luxury in their life, having that kind of enjoyment in their life is always there. But I always say that when Saturn comes into the fifth house, it basically makes you cold with your intelligence. Fifth house is your logical intelligence. It's the way you take decisions. It's the way you react. So, first of all, the karma that you'll get with the children. The karma is the karma, sorry, the karma that you get is also related to how you have reacted upon things. So, your anger, your reaction, the way you respond, that is also something that is going to give you the greatest karma. And it basically changes you into the most patient person, most intelligent person. So, initially in your life, you might make mistakes in regards of how you are deciding on things, how you're making a decision, how you're using your brain, your logical mind. You might take stupid decisions in your life as well, but only to perfect yourself through it, through time. All right. So a fifth house Saturn should always be calm and gentle, and you eventually would actually be like that. Your fear surrounds around not being loved. You do not know how to express yourself in love, in romance, how to have that lustful experience with your spouse because you have been very vulnerable at some point with your romantic self, and all you got in return was criticism, judgments that made you set boundaries with that. And now you are a practical person when it comes to your expression of love. But this is an individual within their career, education, knowledge, mythology, fame-oriented business would be extremely important. Shares, speculations, that would be extremely important. Creation, and most of the times, many actors, models, and celebrities you'll see with Saturn in the fifth house. Always something, even if you are maybe an architect, fame is going to be something that has to be there as a part of your career. All right. Now, Saturn in the sixth house. So, Saturn in the sixth house is the most karmic. Like, not the most, I would say. It'll be a heavy one, but it's a karmic planet to have in the sixth house. Although Saturn does well in the sixth house, but it's a journey that goes around. The greatest karma that you have is with your own service within the service or job or business, any sort of business you do, any sort of job you do, that's the karma, your duty. And the karma also comes from relatives, colleagues, all the people that you associate yourself with out there. That's where the karma comes from. Saturn in the sixth house, they learn to be precise and perfect with the legal matters, with the legalities. Because sixth house Saturn will definitely make you involved into legalities and legal matters. Sixth house, seventh house, eighth house, 12th house. These are the firm placements that are going to make you involve into legal matters and legalities. All right. And this happens because sixth house is the natural domain of Virgo. You have to understand perfection. You have to have the karma related to debts, obstacles, arguments, unnecessary conflicts or the necessary conflicts, and legal matters. So, any person with Saturn in the sixth house, you are always going to be involved in some sort of conflict in your life. And these are the individuals with Saturn in the sixth house. They don't know how to deal with conflicts in their life. They absolutely have no idea how to compete in the right way. Remember, I'm not saying they don't know how to compete. They don't know how to compete in the right way. They might become extremist. They might become all in or all out, oblivion about what's happening. So Saturn in the sixth house could be a person where they have to speak, they might not speak. They might just ignore the problem. That's why your duty, your responsibility is to acknowledge, is to show up for your own competition, for your own problems. There's always a karma associated with money. The giving, lending, and borrowing of money. Always it is there. A person with Saturn in the sixth house, your career has to involve service. Your career has to involve barter system. Barter system, I won't, no, not barter system, but trade. Barter system was very, there in the very ancient times, but now it's trade, right? Something precise, something precision, something which is about observing, which is about giving attention to the details. That's what is going to be the part of your career. But sixth house Saturn, why it is considered as one of the most important placements is because from early on in your life, you go through all this toxicity, you go through all the battles, all the problems, all the obstacles, and you become perfect. You not No one is perfect, but you become better, you grow, and you become such a good critique at understanding how I need to deal with my problems. And that's why these are the ones who can do very well in solving the problems. That's why they can be excellent lawyers. They can be excellent counselors. And your karma is associated, your fear is also associated with your health because sixth house is also the health. It's the house of diseases. So, definitely, people with the first house Saturn, third house Saturn, sixth house Saturn, they will always be paranoid about whether they have something with some issue with their health. And you'll have to work upon your nutrition. You will have to work upon your well being. And especially, you'll have to work upon your routine. It's the most difficult for the person with the fourth house Saturn and sixth house Saturn to establish a routine. But your karma is to do that. Your karma is to put in effort there. And there's always karma with relatives, especially in Indian societies. And of course, that is also there outside as well, outside of India as well. There is always going to be obligation, criticism, judgments coming from the relatives, especially the maternal side of the family is going to be very difficult to handle. But those are the one who will always be in your support. Now, Saturn in the seventh house. So, Saturn in the seventh house is the natural exalted placement of Saturn because Saturn loves to negotiate. Saturn loves to bring in balance, fair. Saturn loves to be in drama. That's something you can see in the life of Shani. Trust me. Saturn loves to be in drama because Saturn loves to be the person to bring in the fairness, to bring in the balance. And where do we have to bring in balance, or where do we have to talk about what is fair, what is justice, what is injustice? Only where the injustice is happening, only where the balance is not there, the area which is imbalanced. So, Saturn in the seventh house, your obligation and your greatest karma is with your maternal grandmother and with your spouse, with your partners. So, wherever Saturn is, that area would always be activated. That's not the area which you won't have anything of, because Saturn is sitting there. It is operational there. It is bringing something out of there. So, Saturn in the seventh house, you will at some point in your life go into business or into business partnership, because you have your karma towards your partner. You have your karma towards your business partner. You have your karma towards your maternal grandmother. Saturn in the seventh house, most criticism comes from the marriage, from the other people. This is a person just like Saturn in the first house. This is a person, because this is a shadow house of you, of your own personality. So, this is a person who is going to go through the struggles of judgment, criticism from the others. And that's the reason their fear comes from the others, other people. Saturn in the seventh house can give you tremendous amount of fame. First, fourth, fifth, seventh, 10th, 11th can give you tremendous amount of fame, because your karma is towards other people. Your duty and commitment is towards other people. With Saturn in the seventh house, you will go through that testing phases of being tested on whether you are very truthful to your spouse or not, whether you are truthful to your partner or not. So, with just the presence of Saturn in the seventh house, doesn't make you a loyal partner, doesn't make your marriage a committed one. It's actually going to be the most disbalanced marriage, which will always make you understand that there is need to bring in balance. There is need to bring in that management, that justice. Your business will grow over time. You might be in job, but ultimately you're going to settle in business as part of your profession. You're excellent negotiator, and you know whom to talk with. You're not social, but you're selectively social. Wherever you know that, yes, my benefit could come from here, you know I can establish a communication there. That's the kind of Shani is in the seventh house. But at some point, it detaches you from the partner. It can bring in a broken marriage. It can bring in, no, no, not broken marriage, but a broken engagement or a broken relationship, a long-term one. But with seventh house Saturn, marriage is something you cannot escape even if you want to. You will rebel the spouse, you will rebel the partnership, you will rebel the partner, but you can never escape the partnership. Saturn in the seventh house, your partner might also go through complications, and either they go through struggle in their own life, or it's that your and their relationship is always struggle and it grows over time. So by the time like you get over 40 then, or over 36, that's when the relationship starts getting better. Before that, it's always a tug of war. It's like you will have to prove yourself to your partner. You will have to prove your worth. You will have to prove your commitment towards your partner. That's what Saturn in the seventh house is. Okay, I can tell you a number of more things, but let's keep that for the individual video. All right. Now, Saturn in the eighth house. And no, before going into eighth house, Saturn in the seventh house, your fear also comes through marriage. You are very critical of selecting your partner also because of this reason only, because you're fearful about the marriage and the marriage concept. All right. Now, Saturn in the eighth house. So, Saturn in the eighth house is a placement of a very stubborn person, right? Of a person who has dealt with loneliness, who has dealt with transformation, who has dealt with all the struggles, the war, the kind of judgment from the society, being accused by the society or by their workspace or by someone authoritative. They have suffered through everything. And they come to a point in their life where they do not care about what people say or what people think. So in the Saturn in the eighth house, for your spouse, it becomes the second house, right? So for your spouse, there will be growth. There will be always be very, very associated, very strongly uh, ambitious about money, about creating wealth. And will have you will be totally opposite initially. So I've seen people with Saturn in the eighth house, they they initially do not know how to save money. They are more on the spending side, and their spouse is the one who basically teaches them how important it is to create resources, how important it is to create finance, like savings, to budget your finances, organize your finances. Eighth house Saturn will be a person who would definitely find their interest into occult, excellent interpreter of astrology. An eighth house person is not a person who can get their astrological consultation from everyone. Only they can get from the ones who are talking about facts, not about superstitions. Because eighth house Saturn is one of the placements, they are the most rebel. If something doesn't make sense to them, if something is not logical according to them, they would not entertain it. They would say it on your face. That I don't find you useful because you are talking unnecessary BS. So they don't entertain that. That's the reason they themselves become interested in astrology. They themselves become deep researchers. That's why your career has to be either involved with research, transformation, insurance, other people's money, managing other people's money, organizing other people's money, finance sector, but not the finance that we have for like us. The finance that we manage for the others, like chartered accountants, like insurance agents, um, portfolio managers, anything of that sort. They can go into surgery, they can be excellent surgeons, they can be excellent astrologers, they can be into any sort of profession where transformation is needed, where deep research is needed and evaluation is needed. Saturn in the eighth house, your duty is towards the in laws. Your greatest karma is with the in laws. You will get the in laws. See, I won't say that they are going to be very orthodox because sometimes, like for example, if Saturn is in Aquarius, that won't be the case, right? But there is definitely something related to old schoolness or there is related to traditions that is always the matter of discussion. And that is always the matter of criticism. You will get most amount of judgments, not just your in-laws, from everyone, because third aspect goes into the 10th house. So you will get criticism, you will get judgment from the others, and especially from your in-laws. Your relationship with your in-laws would develop over time. There is always a distance that is there created with the in-laws, but your in-laws might be the ones to support you whenever you will need it the most. So that's the beauty of it. But this relationship will not develop overnight. It develops only over time. Okay? With Saturn in the eighth house, your fear, right? Because that's where the fear is. That's where the delay comes from. Your fear is to be stuck into something which is unexpected, right? So, something which suddenly comes to you, something which suddenly affects you, or the sudden changes, that's not where you work very well. And also, Saturn coming into the eighth house, that suppresses the suddenness of your life as well, right? So, consistency is the key for the eighth house Saturn. It is important for you to have the consistency. And the person with the eighth house Saturn, they have been the loose self of them at least once in their life, and that's where they get their karma. A person with eighth house Saturn, depending on the dignity of Saturn, you might have been into addiction, might have been into cheating, you might have been into infidelity, you might have been into something secretive. That secretive could be anything. It could get as dirty as possible. It could be as minimalistic as possible. But having Saturn in the eighth house is like that you've been through all those negative things that you have done, and now you have tasted all of it, and you understood that's not your piece of cake, and now you are a better person. Now you have changed and transitioned, transformed. So there's a transformation that comes with these individuals. But definitely, they go deep into the eighth house matters before they actually transform. And you'll be very stingy on providing others. You'll be very calculative on providing others, and especially others as in the spouse's family. That is also there. Now, but the wealth and the money is always good with, but like it's never that they will go through the ups and downs of finances. But once they learn the consistency, the discipline, the repetition thing, they get better with their wealth. Now, Saturn in the ninth house. Saturn in the ninth house, your greatest karma is with your own belief system, with your gurus, your father. Saturn in the ninth house is of the person who will try to question themselves. There's no other person who is going to come to question you first. I'm not saying that there's not going to be anyone. There are going to be people to question you. There will be your gurus, there will be your father. But you always question yourself. There's always a tug of war goes between what is ethical, what is unethical. Are my um actions towards the ethical self, towards the spiritually right, which is spiritually right self, ethical self, or my actions are not towards it. That's a dilemma which goes on forever. Saturn in the ninth house restricts your bhagya. It makes you learn a lot. It makes you get knowledge a lot, but it will give you gap. It will give you obstacles within your higher education at least once in your life. It will restrict your travel. It will restrict your settlement overseas. or it can delay it and then give you. It will give. It will definitely give. The promise is there, but it will give with delay or with by testing your patience to the max. Saturn in the ninth house is a person who is also very lethargic. Lethargy is something that you have to deal with. You have to get better with. In your life, there is always going to be something thrown at you which will not let you sit, which will not let you enjoy the relaxation. That happens with the ninth house Saturn and the 12th house Saturn, generally, when it comes into the zodiac sign of Jupiter. So, with Saturn in the ninth house, your responsibility is towards the father. Be the one to provide everything to your father. At, at some time, you may feel that it's almost impossible to deal with your father, to you know come to the expectations, to fulfill the expectations of your father or of your guru. The reason that's with a for a person with Saturn in the ninth house or Saturn in the 12th house, they become most spiritual is because they have their karma with gurus and with spirituality. With ninth house Saturn, you are one of the individuals who will always feel paranoid with your actions. And as a result, if you think right now, there will be instances, there will be places that you had to stand up, you had to fight for someone or for your own self, but you did not. And that's your journey of understanding, right? Because this is the higher effort that you make towards your life. But if third house is the effort, your self effort, your skills. Ninth is the higher skills, it's the philosophy. So, indeed, these people become very spiritual, they become very ethical, they become very good evaluator and critical people to tell you what's right, what's wrong. At the same time, they become very good writers, the writers who have the ability to get their things, their stories, everything published. They become very good philosophers. All right. So that's what Saturn in the ninth house does. Now, Saturn in the 10th house. Saturn in the 10th house could be the most difficult placement a person would uh, say when they are in their young self, their young prime years. Because Saturn in the 10th house is not for your prime years of life. It's about your old age. No, it's about your um what do we say that midlife crisis. Because Saturn in the 10th house, your obligation, your duty, commitment is towards your father's career, your father's lineage, maybe your paternal side of the family. You have your duty and your karma towards them. You have to serve them, even though you have the worst relationship with them. But that's your karma. You have your karma with authorities. You have your karma with your career towards the society. You are here to work and you will be working all your life. Saturn in the 10th house can be of a person to have at least more than one business in life. more than one source of income in their life. That's how beautiful 10th house Saturn placement is. So 10th house Saturn is one of the placements where you would struggle. You would struggle with criticism. You will struggle through your bosses. Whenever you are going to go for a job, you have struggled your way to the top. You will be at the top, but you have struggled your way to the top because 10th house is where Sun gets Digbali, Mars gets Digbali. That's where Sun is at the top in the noon, 12, at 12 in the noon, 1 in the noon. That's where Sun is at the top. You can shine the most. And you put Saturn there. Saturn doesn't want to shine. Saturn wants to be committed. Saturn wants to give its commitment. But now you're putting Saturn in an uncomfortable zone. Now it has to be at a stage. And Saturn doesn't like to be staged. He likes to operate on the backside. So that's your struggle. You will have to take the responsibilities. You will have to show up. You will have to be in the limelight, even though you're uncomfortable with that limelight. You don't want to be appreciated by others. You just want to do your duty. You want to be appreciated by your family. You want to be appreciated by yourself. When you will think that, yes, I have grown from tomorrow. Sorry, I have grown from yesterday. Yesterday I did this, but today I'm more productive. Yesterday I was earning 50 bucks. Today I'm earning 100. That's what you desire. In your career, there has to be obligation towards the society. There has to be you dealing with people, you dealing with society, you dealing with government. That's why Saturn in the 10th house are excellent for politicians. The limelight is there. The service towards the janta is there. The service towards the citizens is there. 10th house Saturn should never stop working hard. The moment you'll stop working hard is the moment the graph will go down. 10th house Saturn makes you understand how you are powerful alone. Your satisfaction lies into identity. Not that you're being appreciated just for the sake of people have something to get from you. No, that you have done something which is worthy of appreciation. Only then you get satisfied with appreciation. So 10th house Saturn, you restrict yourself with your encounters with others, with the society. You are the most, you're working towards organizing everything in your life. You're organizing your actions. People with Saturn in the 10th house, they must have reacted like a person who doesn't know how to react in the public. They must have been judged for that. They must have been criticized within their workspace. They would have had extremely difficult situation within their workplace, which basically motivated them to become better, to become restricted. This is not a person that you'll ask to sit on your couch and be relaxed. They would never relax. They would always be very firm, very formal until unless they are in a comfortable space. Whenever they are out there, whenever they are with anyone who is, not a part of their family, not the person they feel comfortable with, they're going to be most formal people that you'll meet. So these people rise above the criticism, the judgment, the fear that the society gives them. All right. Now, Saturn in the 11th house. So, Saturn in the 11th house, it's the house of your desires, it's the house of your social circle, it's also the house of your relatives, distant relatives. These are the individuals who absolutely love to be a part of the society. Either they are doing as a perspective of family or they are doing as a perspective of career. But in any ways, they love to be part of the society. They love to get validation from the society. If this Saturn is not very well placed, if this Saturn is afflicted, they might get the hardest time to fulfill their desires. And sometimes an exalted Saturn would also create that for you, that you will have to work to fulfill your desires. It's not that you're sitting and you're just obligated, like you are just worthy, you are obligated that you'll get all the luxury. This is the placement of a person, even though they have everything, absolutely everything in the world, they still will work for their desires. Either you can see it this way that their desires are like never finishing. There is never an end to the amount of desires they have. Either it can be that, or it can be that even though they are in the comfortable space, they will still struggle to feel comfortable. There is the greatest karma that they have is towards the social circle, towards the relatives, towards the society, and towards the eldest sibling. So this might not be feasible by everyone, but since I said about all the other houses as well, if you can provide your elder sibling in any way, if you can be of help to them in any way, the elder sibling, that will add on to your growth. That would make you feel that yes, I have did something, I've achieved something, or that would make your recognition grow. So Saturn in the 11th house is a person who would want to do something for the society. That's this placement. This is the placement of philanthropists. Not just the philanthropists who are on a greater level, who have so much money. Even if you have this much money, you would want to give. That's the kind of placement this Saturn in the 11th house is. Your career would always be involved with the society, with corporates, with recognition, fame, where you have to be the one who has to deal with a group of people. You have to be the one to present something. You have to be into that light. That's where Saturn in the 11th house come. But since 11th house is also the friend circle, you do have a lot of expectations through your friend circle, and you get your hurt from your friend circle. And when you get that hurt, when you get that, you know, that thing that, you are not appreciated as per how you have been for them, they have been deceptive, they have not been the same, you try to restrict your circle. Then Saturn in the 11th house would be one of the individual who will have quality friends, not the quantity friends. Always. These are the people who will establish by the time they we reach their 30s, 40s. These are the ones who are going to establish their friend circle who is of quality, who are there to support. It's your relatives, it's your colleagues, it's your social circle, your friends, it's your elder sibling from where you are going to get the maximum amount of judgment and criticism. But those are going to be the people who are going to be there in your support when you will need. All right. So, Saturn in the 11th house, I feel that is a beautiful placement that grows with time. But you need to stop getting validation from the others. That's your karma. As soon as you understand this karma, you will be able to do beautiful things in your life. Because see, wherever Saturn is, we are going to get judged from there. So why to bother ourselves? Why to get ourselves into such intense sorrow? Rather, just have a clear mind that yes, this is going to happen. Let's just do the duty. Let's just do the commitment. All right. And this could also be the placement of the person who will actually feel that yes, my desires did get fulfilled. But that happens after 36 or maybe sometimes after 48. Depends on how Saturn is placed. You know, a debilitated Saturn in the 11th house can actually give you everything that you desire in your life earlier in life than an exalted Saturn in the 11th house. It's like a child with an exalted Saturn in the 11th house, they have to go through a whole drama situation to get that one thing. And with a debilitated Saturn, that same child would do something such smartly that that person is going to get that without the drama, just by just saying that I need this. So that's the kind of differentiation it is within the 11th house. Specifically, I'm talking about the 11th house. Understand the theory behind it. It's the trick house, it's the pacha house. Malefics are welcomed here. Benefics in worse situation are welcomed here. Okay? For a person with an exalted Saturn here will value what they got because they know they have worked. They know they have gone through all the drama for getting that. But on the other hand, maybe an exalted, maybe a debilitated Saturn would not appreciate that because they know they didn't, they just did some cards around, and got that. All right. Now, lastly, Saturn in the 12th house. Very important placement because when your Sadasati also starts, that's the first thing you analyze because Saturn comes 12th from the moon. Even when it comes 12th from your ascendant, that's also when almost close to Sadasati starts for you. People who have gone through both, they can assure, they can agree to this. So Saturn in the 12th house. 12th house is about isolation. 12th house, you will learn about 12th house to be foreign spaces, foreign lands, foreign government, foreign travel, isolation, isolated places, jails and asylums. You will hear for the 12th house to be the sorry, the expenses, the expenditure, the bed pleasure, the how well you associate yourself with others, how comfortable you are at sharing your bed, how adjustative you are within your marriage. You'll hear about all of these things. But one thing that 12th house represents, and I take it as the most important factor, which is how well you take on responsibilities. Because 12th house is the escapism. It is the isolation. It is where you escape, where you detach yourself from the real world. But this is the last house. It's also the house where you fulfill all your karma, because now you have to step either again in that circle or out of the circle of the life. So 12th house is also where you take up your responsibilities. And why I'm mentioning it here, most probably because, and most evidently, because Saturn in the 12th house is the most important reflection of how important it is for you to take your responsibilities. Saturn in the 12th house would make you very, very stingy because it is the house of your expenditure. Saturn coming here made you so stingy with the outgoing of money. I've seen super stingy people with Saturn in the 12th house. Trust me on this. Even some people who may not even spend on themselves. That's the kind of Saturn I've seen in the 12th house sometimes. I'm not saying all of you are that stingy. All of you are stingy, but the degree is dependent upon how the Saturn is placed, how the situation of Saturn is. But that's how Saturn makes you learn that you have responsibilities to take care. Sooner or later, you're going to realize that you will have to be the provider. You will have to complete the debts. You will have to deal with the lending, borrowing of money at some time in your life. Either this lending and borrowing might not be yours. It might have been of your father. That could even be a possibility. But somehow you will have to deal with the expenditure. You will have to organize the expenditure, the finances. You will have to organize and structure your responsibilities. Your greatest karma, duty, and responsibilities is towards provision. It's towards foreign government. It's also towards your I had something in mind. I just skipped that. It's also towards legal matters. With a person with 12th house Saturn, they have to deal with legalities. You yourself can be a lawyer. You yourself can be the person who is maybe somewhere working in the legal firms, or maybe in jail, maybe in hospitals, anywhere which the 12th house is, the 12th house represents. You also can have import and export business where you connect yourself with foreign governments, foreign people. That could also be a part of it. But whenever, one of the remedies, I would say, whenever in your family someone needs provision, as in someone is in hospital, be the one to buy their medicine. Be the one to spend money on them, even if it is small amount of money. But you must do that, because otherwise Saturn will make you do that. You need to go through that isolation. You need to go through how it feels to be left alone. And there would be a time in your life when you yourself would want to be left alone. You will enjoy the peace that comes from isolation. You will enjoy the peace that comes from loneliness. With a person with Saturn in the 12th house, they they're not comfortable at sharing their bed with anyone. They're not comfortable at sharing their space with someone. That's why many times for a person with Saturn in the 12th house, they can be forced into marriage from, by their parents or by someone, by their most of all their family. Or this could even be some people who get married as a part of fulfilling their duty and responsibility. It's very less times with a Saturn in the 12th house who will do that voluntarily. Because the way they have lived life, they have found their peace in isolation. So even if you are in a happy married life, I'm not saying that the marriage life is not good. I'm saying that in the very beginning, they must have felt that what do we say, that bitters? The marriage bitters or marriage gitters, something like that, that would say we say that. But something like that would be there initially in the starting. Because you have been vulnerable at some point in your life, right? But because of you have been vulnerable with your subconscious, with your personality, you have been dependent on someone at one point in your life, that now you learned the lesson that you have to be on your own. You restrict your subconscious. You go through that sleepless nights. You go through that excessive thoughts as if your mind is working 24/7. So because of that, there is no rest. There is no relaxation that comes to you. And as a matter of that, you choose to be alone. You choose to be at peace. Peace is very important for you. And a person with Saturn in the 12th house, and if it is afflicted with Mars or Sun, this person can get this person can get irritated easily. All right. So Saturn in the 12th house, just imagine this to be your first phase of Sadesati. Nothing is easy. Everything is a mess. And you have to, now organize that mess. You have to re-establish yourself because of the mess which is made. That's what we do in the first phase of Sadasati. That's the similar thing that happens there. But the intuition is top notch of these individuals. And the intuition is always backed up by logic, by precision. They're very precise people. And these are not the people who will be into their dreamy land. And at some point, they can be subject to addiction, anxiety. And that's where they have their karma towards their subconscious mind. They will have to deal and get better with their subconscious mind. The biggest karma or the biggest task that you have to accomplish with Saturn in the 12th house is to have a control over your subconscious and your conscious mind. All right? What else? What else with Saturn? Because Saturn in the 12th house is a placement. See, one more thing. Saturn in the 12th house, you have been into your own dreamland. You have been dependent on others emotionally, maybe physically. You have been vulnerable in that vulnerable state. But when Saturn hits in, when this karma gets activated, this what I'm saying that would have been in your early age. But over a period of time, You got your karma with because reality hit you and you were stuck with that, you were given that hammer on your head and taught that you have to deal with reality. You will have to deal with what the reality of life is, what the reality of society is. And I always say, with Saturn in the 12th house, these people should donate for a cause. It's important that you do that and do that consistently. Like, it's not that today you are giving 5,000 INR, the other month, next month you're giving 10,000 INR. No. Decide one amount which you think is feasible by you for a longer period of time and give that amount every month consistently. And you will see how you will be able to take on any sort of expenditure in your life because the expenditure will never stop in your life. That will always be there. But your capacity to deal with it, your capacity to bear it will grow. And if that grows, of course, your finances would have also been grown. Okay. So, guys, that was my analysis with Saturn through the houses. I hope this has given you a lot of information about your placement of Saturn in your natal chart. We will go into the depths of it, but first we would cover all the planets through all the houses. All right, we'll see you with the next video. Bye bye. Take care.